Elena stood at the enormous viewport, the dazzling spectrum of alien architecture stretching before her in impossible configurations. The council chamber itself defied human engineering principles, a vast sphere suspended in what appeared to be liquid light, accessible only by transparent tubes that seemed too fragile to support even a single person. Quite the spectacle, isn't it? The Mithrid representative, Talvex, glided beside her. His translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that Elena had learned indicated amusement. Many first-time representatives find themselves overwhelmed. You adapt remarkably well for a species so new to interstellar society. Elena nodded diplomatically. Humans have always been adaptable. It's perhaps our defining characteristic. She watched as General Webb studied the security protocols at each chamber entrance, his military training impossible to suppress even in formal diplomatic attire. The council session that would determine Earth's membership was scheduled to begin in 1 hour. Elena reviewed her prepared speech on her datapad while ignoring the knot of anxiety in her stomach. Humanity's future hung in the balance. Access to medical technology that could end all disease, energy solutions that would eliminate poverty, and defensive capabilities that would ensure Earth's safety for generations to come. Ambassador, Webb approached, keeping his voice low. I've been studying their defense systems. Don't you find it odd that they've shown us everything? Military secrets, technological specifications, weapons capabilities. No strategic power reveals their full hand during initial negotiations. Elena sighed. Marcus, we've discussed this. The Council operates on principles of complete transparency among members. It's how they've maintained peace for over 3,000 years. According to their history, Webb countered. Written by them, translated by them, verified by them. He gestured toward the gathering alien representatives. 16 species, all claiming peaceful cooperation despite radical biological and cultural differences. No conflicts, no disagreements substantial enough to cause diplomatic incidents. Does that sound plausible to you? Before Elena could respond, the chamber lights pulsed in a specific pattern, indicating the session would soon begin. The human delegation gathered, straightening formal attire and checking translation devices. Dr. Lowell, Earth's leading xenobiologist, couldn't contain her excitement as she cataloged the physiological diversity entering the chamber. Prime Minister Okafor maintained the practiced calm of a seasoned politician, though even he seemed momentarily awestruck as the liquid light walls of the chamber began displaying the history of each member species in gorgeous holographic detail. When Earth's turn came, the assembled council members witnessed humanity's journey. Cave paintings to space stations, tribal conflicts to global cooperation, primitive tools to quantum computing. The presentation, curated from Earth's data archives, portrayed humanity's perseverance and ingenuity while tactfully minimizing the darker chapters of human history. The Galaxian overseer, whose species had founded the council millennia ago, rose from the central podium. Multiple eye stalks focused on the human delegation as a melodious voice resonated through the translation devices. We have observed your kind for centuries, watching your development with great interest. Few species transition from planetary warfare to unified purpose with such speed. Your adaptability, your creativity in the face of limitations, your curious balance of competition and cooperation. These qualities make you uniquely valuable to our galactic community. The emphasis on the word valuable sent an involuntary shiver down Elena's spine, but she dismissed it as a translation anomaly. As the formal vote commenced, holographic symbols representing each council species appeared above the central platform, all shifting to the universal indicator for approval. Humanity had been accepted. A new chapter in Earth's history had begun. Yet even as celebrations erupted across their home planet, General Webb's unease only deepened. Sanjay paced his cramped office at the Xenolinguistics Division of the newly established Earth Embassy. The walls were lined with holographic dictionaries of council languages, pronunciation guides floating in midair. For 3 years, he had dedicated himself to understanding the nuances of these alien tongues without technological assistance, a decision his colleagues had called unnecessarily difficult. Now he understood why his instincts had pushed him to learn naturally. The translation implants provided by the Council weren't just tools, they were filters. Computer, display subsection 47C of the original membership agreement in Mithrid formal script alongside the Council's official translation, he commanded. The two texts appeared side by side, glowing softly in the dimmed light. To most humans, the Mithrid text would appear as beautiful but incomprehensible swirls and dots. To Sanjay, after thousands of hours of study, the meaning was clear and horrifying. Where the official translation read, Earth shall be granted protected status within Council space, with sustainable development overseen by mutual agreement, the actual Mithrid text stated, designation, Resource World 7C biological and mineral extraction to commence following standard cultivation period. Native sentient species to be processed according to harvester protocols. Sanjay's hand shook as he compiled his findings. Every major clause in the agreement contained similar discrepancies. The trade agreements, the technology exchanges, the defensive pacts, all were carefully worded deceptions designed to develop Earth's resources for eventual harvesting. He encrypted his report with the highest security protocols and sent it directly to Ambassador Chen. Sleep was impossible as he waited for a response, imagining her reaction to the evidence of this cosmic betrayal. The next morning, his security clearance was suddenly revoked. When he tried to enter his office, the embassy AI informed him that he had been reassigned to a research outpost on Mars. Before he could protest, 2 human security officers escorted him to a shuttle. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Did Ambassador Chen receive my report?" The officers remained silent, their expressions unreadable. As the shuttle prepared for departure, Sanjay spotted a familiar face boarding. Dr. Lowell, the xenobiologist who had been part of the original delegation. "They're removing everyone who might figure it out," she whispered when they were seated together. "I identified anomalies in the biotech they gave us. Hidden monitoring functions, data collection on human physiology far beyond what they disclose. When I reported it, this happened. The shuttle never reached Mars. Instead, it diverted to a secret facility within the asteroid belt, a base established by General Webb without Council knowledge. There, Sanjay found dozens of scientists and analysts who had independently discovered concerning discrepancies in Council interactions. Meanwhile, on the Council hub, Alina Chen stood before the inner circle, her diplomatic poise masking her internal rage. The evidence Sanjay had provided was irrefutable. "You deliberately mistranslated a binding agreement," she stated, each word precisely chosen. "Under both Earth law and what we understood to be Council law, this constitutes fraud and nullifies the contract." The Exalaxian overseer's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Alina now recognized as their equivalent of dismissive amusement. The terms were provided in standard Council script. The overseer responded through the translator. "That your species failed to comprehend them is unfortunate, but legally inconsequential. You provided false translations," Alina countered. "We provided translations," the Exalaxian corrected. "The accuracy of those translations was never guaranteed in any binding way. This is standard Council procedure." "Standard procedure for what?" Alina asked, though she already feared the answer. "For resource acquisition, Ambassador. Your world has been cultivated efficiently. New colonies established to maximize extraction potential, population growth encouraged, technological development accelerated to appropriate harvest levels." The overseer's tone remained matter-of-fact. "The harvest timeline has already been approved. The committee extends its compliments on Earth's exceptional development metrics." Alina's blood ran cold as she realized the full implications. "And how many worlds before us have you harvested this way?" The Exalaxian's eye stalks turned toward a holographic display that appeared between them, showing hundreds of planetary systems categorized by status. Yours will be the 47th successful acquisition under current methodology. The system is quite efficient. The emergency command center beneath Denver shuddered as another orbital strike hit the surface. General Webb hunched over the strategic display, his face illuminated by the holographic map showing humanity's rapidly diminishing territory. Red indicators blinked out one by one as colonies went dark. New Mumbai's evacuation ships are away, but they're being pursued by Council harvesters, reported Colonel Lin, her voice steady despite the catastrophic news she delivered hourly. Lunar defense grid is at 15% capacity and failing. Mars colonies have gone silent. Webb studied the movement patterns of the Council fleet. 3 days into what was clearly a meticulously planned assault, and Earth's defenses were crumbling faster than their worst-case simulations had predicted. But something about the attack strategy nagged at him. "They're hurting us," he said suddenly, silencing the chaotic command center. "Look at the attack vectors. They're deliberately leaving corridors open toward Earth, pushing our scattered forces to consolidate here." Admiral Garcia frowned. "Standard military doctrine. We should be gathering our remaining ships to defend the homeworld." "That's exactly what they expect," Webb countered. "They want us clustered around Earth for a final decapitation strike." He straightened, decision made. "We're not going to play their game. Transmit new orders to all remaining vessels. Operation Scattered Remnant is now in effect." Throughout human space, ship captains received the encrypted orders with disbelief. Instead of returning to defend Earth, they were directed to specific coordinates in deep space, asteroid belts, and the outer reaches of the solar system. Locations of hidden bases established in secret during the 3 years of deceptive peace. "What about Earth?" asked Captain Chen of the UES Defiant, one of Earth's few true warships. "We're just abandoning our homeworld." "Negative, Captain," came Webb's response. "Earth is implementing Phoenix Protocol. Execute your orders and maintain communication blackout until rendezvous." While military vessels scattered to hidden bases, civilian engineers across Earth worked frantically to implement plans that had been quietly distributed through secure channels months earlier. The Council would find Earth defending itself, but not in the way they anticipated. On the Council Harvester flagship, Fleet Commander Zex Kaloth observed the tactical display with growing confusion. "The human resistance is not conforming to predicted patterns," he reported to the Overseer. "Their military vessels are scattering rather than consolidating." Irrelevant, the Overseer's voice responded through the quantum link. "Their technology cannot escape our tracking capabilities. Once Earth is secured, we will eliminate their remaining vessels at leisure." "Understood." Commencing final approach to Earth. The massive harvester fleet moved into position, their weapons capable of rendering the planet's surface uninhabitable within hours. As the first wave of harvesters entered Earth's atmosphere, they encountered minimal resistance. Planetary defense systems fired sporadically, easily overwhelmed by superior Council technology. Zex Kaloth felt an emotion his species rarely experienced: disappointment. He had studied human military history and expected more ingenuity from these creatures. Then the first anomaly appeared on his sensors. A civilian passenger liner, designated as evacuating refugees, suddenly altered course toward his command ship. Before he could order defensive measures, the liner detonated in a pulse unlike any weapon signature in Council records. Throughout the Harvester fleet, critical systems failed simultaneously as the modified EMP weapons, built using reversed-engineered Council technology, but with distinctly human innovations, detonated in careful sequence. Mining vessels emerged from hidden positions in Earth's asteroid belt, launching primitive but effective kinetic weapons at the suddenly vulnerable harvesters. "This is impossible," Zex Kaloth hissed as secondary systems failed under the human assault. "They cannot have developed countermeasures to our technology so quickly." But they had. Under Webb's guidance, humanity had spent 3 years preparing not just conventional defenses, but studying every scrap of Council technology for potential vulnerabilities. The harvesters, accustomed to harvesting helpless civilizations, found themselves under attack from seemingly every direction. Makeshift weapons fired from civilian structures, hidden platforms on Earth's moon, and even orbiting satellites suddenly revealing military capabilities. Earth would still burn. Billions would die as the Council's overwhelming technological advantage eventually reasserted itself, but humanity would not be extinguished as planned. And the Council had just learned a costly lesson. Humans were unlike any species they had harvested before. Dr. Emily Takahashi rubbed her eyes, the strain of continuous work taking its toll despite the stimulants coursing through her system. The salvaged Council quantum processor sat on her workbench, partially disassembled and connected to a maze of human analytical equipment. 8 months since the first strike, and she was finally making progress. "Any breakthroughs?" asked Director Kaminsky, his voice low as he entered the lab. Food rationing had left everyone in Sarah's base gaunt, and the director's once pristine uniform hung loosely on his frame. "Maybe." Emily gestured to her displays. "Their quantum architecture doesn't just process information. It actually alters local physics to enable computation. That's why their technology so vastly outperforms ours. They're not just using better components, they're manipulating fundamental forces." Kaminsky frowned. "Can we replicate it?" "Not yet, but I'm beginning to understand how to interface with it." She pulled up a simulation. "If we can't build our own, we might be able to hijack theirs." The conversation was interrupted by the base-wide announcement system. "Attention all personnel. Scout ship Hermes returning from Operation Midnight. Medical teams to Docking Bay 3. Security protocols Alpha in effect." Both hurried to the docking area, joining the crowd of anxious observers. The Hermes was Commander Hassan's vessel, sent on a high-risk intelligence-gathering mission to the outer colonies. Their return 3 days early could mean anything. The airlock cycled open to reveal Hassan's team, or what remained of it. Of the 12 who departed, only 7 returned, and most bore evidence of combat. Hassan himself had a hastily bandaged wound across his face, the medical nanites clearly struggling to repair the damage. "Report," ordered General Webb, who had arrived silently from the adjacent command center. "Mission successful, sir." Hassan handed over a secure data crystal. "We penetrated the Council's supply depot at Proxima as planned. Downloaded their databases before they detected us. Lost Peterson, Rodriguez, and Mbeki in the initial infiltration. Chen and Singh during extraction." Webb accepted the crystal with a solemn nod. "Their sacrifices won't be forgotten. Get your team to medical. Debrief in 3 hours." Later, in the secure command center, Hassan's intelligence painted a grim yet hopeful picture. The holographic display showed Council fleet movements throughout nearby systems. "They're searching for us, but inefficiently," Hassan explained, pointing to scattered patrol patterns. "They never expected survivors beyond Earth, and their resources are stretched thin. Most of their harvest fleets have already moved on to other sectors, leaving only containment forces in our system." Webb studied the tactical display. "They think we're beaten. Good. There's more," Hassan continued, bringing up files extracted from the Council database. "We found records of previous harvests. Dozens of worlds, countless species, all following the same pattern. Initial contact, technology sharing under false pretenses, then the harvest." Dr. Takahashi leaned forward, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. "Did you find anything about their technical capabilities? Network structures? Command protocols?" "Better." Hassan's face showed a grim smile despite his injuries. "We found evidence of resistance. Not just us. Other species have fought back. None successfully, but they've left records, weaknesses they discovered, tactical assessments." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just fighting for human survival anymore. They were potentially fighting for justice for dozens of exterminated civilizations. Director Kaminsky was the first to speak. "So we're not alone in this fight." "Not anymore," confirmed Hassan. We also intercepted communications indicating some Council client species are questioning the official narrative about Earth. Apparently, our resistance has lasted longer than any previous harvest target. We're becoming something of a legend in certain corners of Council space. Webb's weathered face showed the first hint of a smile in months. Legends can be powerful, and desperate species make dangerous enemies. He turned to Dr. Takahashi. How soon can you weaponize your understanding of their quantum network? Emily considered the question carefully. With this new data, give me 2 months. You have 1, Webb replied, already formulating the next phase of humanity's desperate counterattack. Hassan, I need your team ready for another mission. Something bigger this time. As they discussed plans long into the night, the children of Syrah's base played in the hydroponic sections, caring for plants growing in soil smuggled from an Earth that many of them would never see. In their games, Council monsters were always defeated by human heroes, a simple fantasy that their parents were working tirelessly to make reality. Emily's presentation to the unified command of humanity's scattered forces had the room in stunned silence. 2 years of reverse engineering efforts had finally yielded a comprehensive understanding of the Council's technological advantage, and potentially its greatest weakness. Their entire network relies on quantum entanglement nodes, she explained, gesturing to the 3-dimensional model hovering above the conference table. Each node must remain in perfect sync with the central hub, which acts as the master calibration point. That's why their tech so vastly outperforms ours. It's all operating as a single unified system across the galaxy. Admiral Garcia, one of the few fleet commanders to survive the initial assault, leaned forward. And you believe you found a vulnerability in this network? Not just a vulnerability. Emily's eyes gleamed with exhausted triumph, the fulcrum point of their entire technological dominance. She manipulated the display to zoom in on the network architecture. The central hub requires constant recalibration protocols to maintain synchronization. My team has developed an algorithm that would corrupt these protocols, creating a cascading failure throughout their entire network. General Webb studied the simulation as it played out, showing the ripple effect of the theoretical attack. How long would their systems be compromised? Estimates suggest between 72 and 96 hours before they could rebuild the network architecture, Emily replied. Every weapons system, every FTL drive, every communication platform in Council space would be temporarily disabled or severely degraded. The implications hung heavy in the air. After 2 years of hiding, rebuilding, and conducting limited guerrilla operations, humanity might finally have found a way to strike back meaningfully. The silence was broken by the obvious question from Director Kaminsky. How do we deliver this algorithm to the central hub? It's at the heart of Council space, presumably their most heavily defended installation. Captain Sofia Rodriguez stepped forward from where she had been quietly observing at the back of the room. Her enhanced reflexes, a product of pre-Council human augmentation programs, were evident in her fluid movement. We infiltrate, she said simply. The Council believes all augmented humans were eliminated in the first wave of the harvest. They won't be looking for our signatures. Webb nodded thoughtfully. What's your proposal, Captain? Rodriguez activated her own portion of the briefing. Intelligence gathered by Commander Hassan's operations gives us a workable cover. The Krell traders have access to the central hub for maintenance contracts. With appropriate genetic modifications and prosthetics, a small team could pass as Krell. The room erupted in overlapping questions and objections. Rodriguez waited for Webb to restore order before continuing. I studied the Krell physiology and social structures extensively. Their basic body plan is humanoid. With the right modifications, we could maintain the disguise long enough to reach the quantum core. Dr. Patel, their leading xenobiologist, reluctantly confirmed the possibility. It would require significant surgical alterations, elongated limbs, cranial ridges, skin pigmentation. Painful and not entirely reversible, but technically feasible. And once you reach the core, Webb asked. Emily stepped in. The algorithm needs to be uploaded directly to the primary calibration node. It can't be detected until it's already executing, but it requires physical access and authenticated command codes. The implications didn't need stating. This would be a one-way mission for whoever undertook it. "I'll need volunteers," Rodriguez said, scanning the room. "The best we have. People willing to make the ultimate sacrifice." Hands began to rise. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, all willing to risk everything for the chance to strike back at the force that had nearly exterminated their species. Webb observed with a mixture of pride and sorrow. So much talent, so much potential, all redirected to this desperate gambit. "Very well. Captain Rodriguez will command Operation Prometheus. Selection and training begin immediately." As the meeting dispersed, Emily approached Rodriguez privately. "The algorithm isn't complete yet. I need another week minimum." "You have 3 days," Rodriguez replied, her augmented eyes showing no room for negotiation. "The next security rotation at the hub happens in 16 days. We need to be on that station before they change the protocols." Emily nodded, understanding the impossible timeline but accepting it nonetheless. As Rodriguez turned to leave, Emily caught her arm. "Why Prometheus?" she asked, curious about the operation's name. Rodriguez's expression darkened. "He stole fire from the gods and suffered eternal punishment for giving it to humanity." She paused. "We're stealing their fire. The difference is, we'll make sure they're the ones who burn." The stolen Krell vessel limped through the outer security perimeter of the central hub, its systems deliberately throttled to match the radiation signature of ships that had traversed Council-controlled space. Inside the cramped command deck, Lieutenant Quan manipulated the controls with 4 elongated fingers, the result of painful surgical modifications. "Approaching final checkpoint," Quan reported, the vocal modulator implanted in his throat, transforming his human voice into the resonant tones of a Krell trader. "Transmission incoming." Captain Rodriguez activated her own modulator. Even after weeks of practice, the sensation of speaking through the device felt alien. "Put it through." A Council security officer appeared on the communications display, multiple eyes scanning data about their vessel. "Trader vessel Corvin, your approach vector is irregular. State cargo and purpose." "Maintenance crew," Rodriguez replied, using the Krell formal dialect they had spent months practicing. "We carry replacement components for environmental regulation systems in Sector 7. Our navigation suffered radiation damage passing through the Vega pulsar field." She transmitted the forged authorization codes obtained through Commander Hassan's intelligence operations. Long seconds passed as the officer examined their credentials. Rodriguez maintained the characteristic stillness of a Krell, even as her heart pounded. The prosthetic cranial ridges and carefully dyed skin might fool visual inspection, but the Council had biochemical scanners that could potentially detect their human DNA. "Proceed to docking bay 42C, the officer finally responded. "Maintain current vector. Any deviation will result in immediate defensive response." As the communication ended, Rodriguez released a careful breath. "First hurdle cleared," she said quietly. "Dr. Patel, status of the biological masking." Dr. Patel, the team's xenobiologist and medical specialist, checked the readings from the implants each team member carried. Signatures are holding. The synthetic Krell pheromones and modified surface proteins should fool standard scanners. Just remember to maintain the walking gait we practiced. Krell locomotion is distinctive. The central hub grew larger in their view screen. A massive structure built around an artificially controlled black hole, the source of power for the entire quantum network. Unlike the elegant diplomatic stations humans had first encountered, this was a utilitarian behemoth of impossible scale and complexity. "We've studied the schematics, but seeing it in person," Engineer Torres whispered, momentarily forgetting the mission protocols. "Focus," Rodriguez commanded. We split into 3 teams once aboard. Team Alpha secures access to environmental systems to mask our signatures. Team Beta disables internal sensors along our route. My team proceeds to the quantum core, Synchronize timers. We have a 4-hour window while the security shifts change. The docking procedure passed without incident, and the 12-person team disembarked into the bustling corridors of the hub. Aliens of dozens of species moved purposefully through the station, most service personnel from client races rather than full council members. The team's Krell disguises attracted minimal attention, exactly as planned. They separated at the first junction, each group moving toward their designated objectives. Rodriguez led her 4-person team through maintenance accessways, occasionally passing real Krell workers who gave them only cursory acknowledgement. Command, this is Alpha, came the quiet communication through their subdermal implants. Environmental controls secured. Adjusting sensor parameters now. Minutes later, Beta Team reported success in creating a sensor blind spot along their approach to the quantum core. Everything was proceeding according to plan, which made Rodriguez increasingly uneasy. In her experience, no operation ever went this smoothly. Her concern proved justified when they encountered an unexpected security checkpoint near the quantum subdivision. Identification and purpose demanded a Galaxian security officer, eye stalks swiveling suspiciously. Dr. Paddle stepped forward, taking the lead as they had practiced for this contingency. Maintenance Crew Delta 7, he stated, presenting their forged credentials. The radiation shielding in Section 94 shows efficiency degradation of 9%. We're scheduled for replacement of the quantum buffer systems. The Galaxian's eye stalks narrowed. No such maintenance is scheduled in my logs. The order came directly from Overseer Zexkaloff, following anomalous readings detected during the last network synchronization. Paddle responded smoothly, dropping the name of a high-ranking council official they had identified through intelligence. Several tense seconds passed before the Galaxian reluctantly waved them through. Proceed, but your team will be monitored. They continued toward the core, each step bringing them closer to their objective and to the point of no return. Rodriguez checked the small device secured at her hip, containing Emily's algorithm. Everything depended on reaching the calibration node. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station, not for them, but for something else entirely. Emergency announcements echoed in multiple languages. Security alert. Multiple incursions detected in council space. All non-essential personnel evacuate to designated safe zones. General Webb's diversionary attacks had begun right on schedule, drawing attention away from the hub. As confusion spread through the station, Rodriguez nodded to her team. This is it. Move fast. Lieutenant Commander Davis of the UES Reckoning stared in disbelief at his tactical display. Throughout council space, enemy vessels were suddenly dropping out of formation, their weapon systems powering down unpredictably. Report, he demanded, wondering if his sensor systems were malfunctioning. It's not just us, sir, his tactical officer responded, voice rising with excitement. All council ships in the sector are experiencing system failures. Their quantum network is collapsing exactly as Dr. Takahashi predicted. Davis allowed himself a moment of stunned silence. They had received the coded transmission less than an hour ago. Operation Prometheus successful, but he hadn't dared believe it would actually work. Somehow, Rodriguez's team had reached the central hub's quantum core and deployed the algorithm. Send the activation signal to all human vessels, Davis ordered. Operation Rising Phoenix is a go. And transmit the Ally protocol on the frequencies Commander Hassan identified. Throughout council space, the remnants of humanity's scattered fleet emerged from hiding, launching coordinated attacks against suddenly vulnerable council installations. But they weren't attacking alone. Ships of unfamiliar design joined the assault, vessels belonging to species that had maintained a facade of loyalty to the council while secretly harboring resentment for past betrayals. On the central hub, Captain Rodriguez stood alone on the quantum core platform, surrounded by the bodies of council security forces and her own fallen team members. Blood seeped from multiple wounds as she inputted the final authorization codes with trembling hands. The algorithm had been successfully uploaded, but the Council's security protocols were attempting to isolate and contain the damage. "Not today," she muttered, overriding the emergency systems. With her last strength, she initialized the secondary protocol that Dr. Takahashi had added to the algorithm, a backdoor that transferred command functions to recognized human encryptions. As darkness closed in around her vision, Rodriguez saw the status indicators shifting from Council control protocols to human access codes. Her last conscious thought was satisfaction that she had completed her mission. Across Council space, the implications of the network collapse were becoming apparent. Not only had humanity disabled Council technology, they had momentarily gained control of it. Ambassador Chen, who had survived in hiding with the help of sympathetic alien contacts, seized the opportunity to broadcast the truth through the Council's own communication network. "This message is for all species under Council rule," she began, her face and voice transmitted to countless worlds. "I am Ambassador Elena Chen of Earth, a world the Council attempted to harvest as they have harvested dozens before us. For 3 years, we were deceived with false promises of cooperation and advancement, only to be betrayed when the Council decided our resources were ripe for extraction." The broadcast continued, revealing the systematic pattern of deception and genocide perpetrated against numerous species. Chen shared proof, records stolen from Council archives, showing the deliberate mistranslation of agreements, the targeting of worlds for their resources, the careful cultivation of civilizations to maximize harvest yields. "Humanity was meant to be the 47th successful acquisition," she continued. "Instead, we have become the first to fight back effectively. The Council's technological advantage relied on their quantum network, a network that is now under our control. We do not seek domination. We seek justice and freedom for all species deceived and exploited by the Council's false promises." On thousands of worlds, the broadcast sparked immediate action. Species that had long suffered under Council rule but lacked the means to resist now saw an opportunity. Client races that had been forced to participate in the exploitation of others seized Council representatives. The carefully maintained facade of benevolent leadership crumbled in hours. General Webb, coordinating the human military response from a hidden command center, received continuous updates of spreading rebellion throughout Council space. "Focus our attacks on the Harvester fleets," he ordered. "Priority to any world currently targeted for resource extraction." In the Council's inner sanctum, the Galaxian Overseer and the other founding species faced a reality they had never anticipated. Their carefully constructed system of exploitation, maintained for millennia, was collapsing around them. "Activate the contingency protocols," the Overseer commanded. "Withdraw all loyal forces to the core fortress. This rebellion will burn itself out without our guidance." But as they attempted to implement their escape plan, they discovered the true extent of humanity's technological coup. Emily Takahashi's algorithm hadn't merely disabled their systems. It had given humanity access to the Council's most closely guarded secrets, including the location and security protocols of their emergency retreat. "The humans know about the core fortress," reported a panicked Council technician. "Their forces are already converging on it." The Overseer's eye stalks drooped in an unfamiliar emotion: fear. For the first time in countless harvests, the predator had become prey. The great chamber of the former Council hub had been transformed. Where once only the privileged Council species were permitted on the raised days, now representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species occupied seats arranged in a perfect circle. The hierarchical design had been deliberately dismantled, replaced with a configuration that emphasized equality. Ambassador Chen stood at the center of this circle, her diplomatic uniform bearing the scars of the past 3 years. Patches covering blast damage. Discreet armor plating beneath the fabric, a subtle reminder that diplomacy now came with teeth. Behind her, in ceremonial restraints, stood the captured Inner Circle members, the 7 species that had founded the Council millennia ago and orchestrated countless genocides in the name of resource acquisition. The Galaxian Overseer's eye stalks, grouped in defeated acceptance as armed guards from various species maintained vigilant watch. 3 months have passed since the fall of the Council's quantum network. Chen began, her voice steady and clear. 3 months of chaos, retribution, and painful truth. Many worlds remain in crisis. Many species face the challenge of rebuilding from near extinction. The damage done cannot be undone with mere words or apologies. She gestured toward the captive council members. As for these architects of suffering, many have called for their execution. After trillions of deaths across dozens of civilizations, few would question the justice of such a sentence. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled representatives. The Xalaxian overseer's eye stalks lowered further, anticipating the expected call for execution. But humanity's strength, humanity's unique contribution to this galaxy, has never been our capacity for retribution. Chen continued, her voice taking on new resolve. It has always been our ability to envision and build something better from the ruins of devastation. She activated a holographic display showing planets in various stages of recovery, including Earth with its scarred continents slowly healing. These beings will face justice, not through death, but through service. They will spend their remaining lives helping restore the worlds they devastated, under the supervision of those they sought to harvest. Their punishment will be to witness the birth of something better from the ashes of their empire. The proposal sparked intense debate among the representatives. Some demanded harsher punishment, others worried about the risk of keeping the former council leaders alive. Chen listened to each perspective with respect, demonstrating the new approach to galactic governance they were attempting to establish. After hours of discussion, a consensus emerged. The former council species would face justice through restoration work, their technologies and knowledge used to heal the damage they had caused. But they would never again hold positions of power or authority. Chen unveiled the charter for a new galactic alliance, not a hierarchical council, but a federation of equals. Technology will be shared openly, she explained. Translation protocols will be independently verified by all member species. No world will be designated for resource extraction without explicit, correctly translated consent of its inhabitants. As representatives prepared to sign the charter, a holographic memorial activated, displaying the faces of those who had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. Captain Sofia Rodriguez's image stood prominent among them, alongside the members of Operation Prometheus and countless others who had died resisting the Council's harvest. This is humanity's final warning to any who would follow the old Council's path, Chen concluded, steel in her voice despite her diplomat's composure. We defeated you not because we were stronger or more advanced, but because we refused to accept extinction. We survived, we adapted, and we remembered. The next betrayers will find not just humans waiting for them, but a united galaxy that has learned from our example. General Webb, now serving as Earth's security representative, approached Chen after the ceremony. Rodriguez would have appreciated the memorial, he said quietly, though she probably have been embarrassed by the attention. Chen nodded. She never wanted recognition, just justice. Do you think this new federation will actually work? Webb asked, the soldier's pragmatism ever present in his thinking. Different species, different values, different needs. Maintaining true cooperation won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is, Chen replied. But we have something the old council never did. What's that? Chen gestured toward the diverse representatives now mingling freely, former enemies becoming cautious allies. Honesty, transparency, and the memory of what happens when we fail to maintain them. On Earth, the once devastated continents showed the first signs of recovery. Children born after the attack gathered in newly rebuilt schools, learning not just about human history, but about the wider galaxy they now help to govern. In the curriculum approved by the new Federation, the betrayal and subsequent resistance served as both warning and inspiration, a reminder that even the most devastating setbacks could become turning points toward something better. In orbit above Earth, construction crews from a dozen species worked together on a memorial station, built at the site of humanity's first contact with the Council. At its center stood a simple plaque bearing words in every language of the new Federation. To those who would seek dominion through deception, remember Earth, remember humanity, and know that the galaxy now stands united against your kind. This is our final warning.